Welcome back. Today, I've got a little bit of a dark tale for you. There is a dash of hope at the end, so that is a good thing, but this is a glimpse into the nightmare that is the gold rush of the mobile games industry. Remember though, no matter how bad it gets, and people can make a lot of money by taking the low road, it is often still possible to make great money by taking the high road, and we may even have examples of that. Now, I do have a question for you. Have you ever played Stumble Guys? It's actually in Steam right now. It's got 30,000 reviews, and does Stumble Guys seem remarkably familiar to something else? Well, time for you to learn what's going on. A segment of gaming that is rife with the exploitation of users and developers. That's hardly a surprise, it seems to happen everywhere. And today our entryway into this is the reporting of Kirk. It's a story about a group seeking to pump out mobile titles designed to confuse and take advantage of customers. Now, Berk Sayil is the person who described their experiences of being hired by a Turkish development studio where the plan was to create and release small mobile games very quickly. And this is the sort of thing that you're going to start thinking about. You're going to see some patterns. Here's what you do. You look at the top 100 free games on iOS or Android, you analyze them, you add a tiny quirk, you rehash, you put it in the store. Their aim was to basically easily confuse people, to make it so that people would be confused about the real game, just like all those people who would download Stumble Guys when it's obviously just a rip-off of Fall Guys. You can do this in a way that's really cheap, that's highly marketable, and has a great rate of return. He says that these games would take about a month to create from conception to launch. That's how little there is to it. They start with an idea phase where the team would come up with 15 to 20 game ideas, which of course are just spins and things that they already know are doing well. Then a game manager enters the scene, and what that game manager does is they try to work out which one is the most marketable. Okay, so when that's done, then it's time for the advertisement testing phase. This is basically just a tiny version of what, say, Blizzard Entertainment would have done with Diablo Immortal. So many of these mobile games, as an example, if they want to do well in the United States, they're going to do a soft launch in Australia. Because, for whatever reason, the market dynamics of Australia and the USA work pretty similarly. So if you want to do a test and not blow it on your big money opportunity, you do it in Australia. Just what they would do is they would put together a short gameplay video. They'd spend about $100 on some performance marketing stuff across social media, and they'd work out, okay, who followed the game on Twitter? What had the best conversion rate? That would decide whether a game would be trashed or not. And ultimately, it would all come down to the metric of CPI, cost per installation. Now, this is something that for all of marketing is pretty much a thing, but what they would do is they would want a cost per installation of under 50 cents ideally. So 50 cents would be promising enough. If they could get it to 20 cents, that would be a great game. Because ultimately the way this works is just you having an optimized funnel. You want to get the top of the funnel optimized so plenty of people fall into it, and the bottom of the funnel well enough optimized that either enough people watch ads, they buy the thing that removes ads, or they buy microtransactions. Now, this guy was being paid about the equivalent of $100 a month in Turkish dollars. And that's actually less than half of the country's minimum wage of $250. It's not enough to make rent. He worked 40 hours a week. He can only do this because he wasn't attending college and he was getting help from his parents. Pretty rough if that's, you want to get into gaming, but that's the only thing that you can get. And the lack of creativity is the insane thing here because they would create variations of all this stuff specifically for the advertisements. So whatever advertisements perform the best, maybe a particular color or particular animation, those would actually then impact the game itself. You often hear the common wisdom in, say, indie publishing that you really want your game to have strong, gifable moments, because if people can quickly share your game, it'll do well on social media and more people will know about it. I mean, a great example of that is Stray. It's just inherently marketable. Well, they're doing some of that here, just that the advertisements impact the game. So not only do customers get confused and developers get screwed over, but it's also making money the least creative way possible. Because what you do is you let other people take the risk of trying something new, and then you just come in for the sloppy seconds, and you do it on the cheap. And for a really recent example of this that has made its way to the PC market, we've got Stumble Guys. Stumble Guys has been a massive success on PC. It's topping the iPhone charts. with over 18 million daily active players. 18 million DAUs. I mean, that is what AAA companies want to achieve. That's per VGC's reporting, and the game also does have a PC port. The PC port is uniquely well poised to do well against the original game that inspired it, and that is Fall Guys. And this is the tricky situation, because Fall Guys is free to play on consoles, it's free to play on PC, but not on Steam. Whatever happened, Epic gave them a boatload of cash. Of course, Fall Guys was very successful at its start, but evidently they didn't get the long tail, so no doubt Epic coming in with some of that money was an alluring thing to them. And now that has meant that the mobile game knockoff Stumble Guys has managed to slot into Steam and get, I think it's almost 31,000 reviews. It's a pretty damn interesting example of what can actually work. Now the kicker here is that this can also happen in AAA. Maybe not as exploitatively, maybe not as always egregiously, but we did recently publish a video that seemingly resonated with a lot of you about essentially trend chasing, the fantasy of games, what actually comes off as being unique and inspired to customers. And games come to mind like Radical Heights coming after Lawbreakers, Konami doing Metal Gear Survive for some reason, Ninja Theory's Bleeding Edge, which I'm sure several of you can remember. Most recently, the whole thing with Hyenas from Creative Assembly, where a lot of people are thinking, this just seems like an entry into a sort of genre and gameplay and business market. This is a bit weird. And it's the sort of thing where you look at it and you're like, okay, people have definitely worked hard on this. It actually looks like it could be really fun. But why is this reaction coming? It is very interesting. Or is it a situation like with Deep Impact and Armageddon, two movies where, yeah, they just kind of came out that way, that there was two similar things in the market. Now the sad thing here is at the start, mobile games were just games. You might remember it if you had, say, an iPod Touch in the earliest days of the App Store. You had Plants vs. Zombies, Doodle Jump, later Infinity Blade, which was actually a pretty damn great game. You had Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, another truly fantastic game on mobile. And the thing is, there still are brilliant mobile games. Among Us, that's one of them. Wordle, that's another. They can succeed, but the problem is it's a market that is very hard to succeed in, it's a market that is hard to cover, and for any premium game, your chances are really rough because you've got to compete with the advertising dollars of the free-to-play games with massively well-optimized funnels where they pretty much know, oh, we can just burn through 25 million and we will get roughly this return because the funnel's well-optimized and we know our numbers. Makes it pretty damn hard to be doing premium mobile games. Because we all know when you think about a mobile phone compared to a PSP, I mean, my phone's significantly more powerful than PSP, more powerful than a Vita. It's got a brilliant screen. You snap on the backbone controller, and you look at it and you're like, wow, this is a mobile gaming console. Why are all the games on it like this? And that's what makes it hard to be enthusiastic about mobile games. Because where we could all be playing amazing JRPGs, and by the way, you can, even there's one, Fantasia, I believe, by the creator of Final Fantasy, and it's an awesome game, and it's there on mobile. But for whatever reason, that is not the impression that general audiences have of mobile. Now, there are two things that some are seeing as a bit of a market hope here that could potentially save some of mobile gaming. They are Apple Arcade and the now refreshed Netflix Gaming. Both these companies are going in pretty big, and if you think Apple Arcade is just a tiny thing, wait till you hear the revenue projections for it, because on both these platforms, there's no microtransactions, there's no additional spend, you just get games. They don't have bullshit. Both companies are trying to lean on a premium feel for their mobile offerings, and I suppose now that I am an owner of a backbone controller who may be traveling, may not always have a gaming computer on me, is there any hope for me to still enjoy my hobby? Well, let's get into things. Netflix is the newcomer in this space. They've got 13 million downloads across 24 mobile titles, with over 1 million downloads averaging per month, according to Sensor Tower. Okay, so that's pretty damn decent. They actually got 2 million downloads in Stranger Things 1984, and those of course did spike with the release of that series' latest season. But it's exactly what Netflix are kind of looking for. You watch Stranger Things, you have an appetite for more, they have a premium feeling game with a narrative that can fill that appetite. And of course, if you already have a Netflix sub, which in fairness is getting less and less likely over time, then it is just more content for you to access. And they're going serious in this. They acquired Next Games, who are a mobile developer, for $72 million in March 2021. They previously made Stranger Things Puzzle Tales. They acquired Boss Fight Entertainment, another mobile developer who made Castleville for Zynga. But the biggest news is that they purchased Night School Studios. Now, in the mobile space, they made a game called Mr. Robot Exfiltration. And the shocking thing is, it's actually brilliant. And Mr. Robot's a brilliant show, by the way. You should definitely give it a shot. But over here in premium PC land, you'll probably know them from Oxenfree. That is a game that was absurdly critically lauded. They're currently working on its sequel, and they are a Netflix studio. And when you go to what Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, has said, he said, "We've been doing small acquisitions to build up the know-how and the creative chops to be able to make some really great games." But it's not just the studio acquisitions. In terms of the talent that are managing this business, they've got Leanne Loom, who is the head of external games at Netflix. She joined after working in Riot Games as a director and executive producer overseeing third-party game publishing. I have to imagine wonder if that even crossed over with Riot Forge, which has been giving us those games like Ruined King. Mike Verdu, who is their VP of games, previously led Facebook's virtual reality division and was an exec at Electronic Arts. Amir Rahimi was the president of games at Scopely, who are a mobile games company, and he's now VP of game studios. So they're actually committing to this in a fairly serious way. And over time, with the likes of the Oxenfree devs being there, perhaps we can actually expect to see good games in the mobile platform, maybe even in the same way that at one time we would think about getting good games on the Nintendo DS. Who knows? Now, as for development here, they plan to have 50 games on their platform by the end of 2022. Now, there's a few things like, say, just Mahjong, Breakout, Golf, but there are some more premium games from heavy hitters. Now, some of these you won't be aware of. I think the two that you might be, would be Reigns 3 Kingdoms and Kentucky Route Zero. I mean, the Reigns games are actually just fantastic. They're published by Devolver Digital, who you'll certainly know. They're really good. I was playing the space one recently on my iPad, funny enough, and it's a really good space narrative game. It's really fun. And of course, there's no bullshit. But there's quite a few other games in there as well, generally from strong devs, and they are more premium, creativity-first indie games. But of course, for Netflix, they also do have their IP, right? So we've got Shadow and Bone Destinies, which is some sort of mobile role-playing game with more of a sort of conversation text-based format that tends to do quite well there. Point P, that was made by the maker of Downwell. I mean, Downwell is an awesome, super fun game, so that's pretty sweet. We've got, this over here, a sort of an action game. So who knows what that's going to be like. There's also a Queen's Gambit themed chess, and there's also Too Hot to Handle, which I guess is just kind of capitalizing the whole dating thing that's going on in gaming. But the point here is that Netflix, while they're trying to cover their bases, they are trying to go with the premium indie darlings, the sorts who make games that just pop up in Steam one day and people fall in love with. And that could actually be promising. Now, for an example of this model, I guess, wrote large and with some actual data behind it, we've got Apple Arcade, which has done surprisingly well, actually. I mean, they do have their big things, like they've got Lego, they've got Pac-Man, Sonic, Cooking Mama, things like that. They do have a lot of other great games. I mean, Mini Motorways, that thing's actually a super fun, like, city-building puzzler. There's that Bonobo game, where you're, like, swinging through the jungle. I recently played that by hooking up my PlayStation controller to my Apple TV. And you know what? It was a really, really fun game. It was brilliant. And they are actually, JP Morgan are estimating that by 2025, Apple Arcade will see a revenue increase to $1.2 billion per year. I know that's not the biggest money in the world for a company like Apple, but that certainly is quite a lot of money. Now it's available standalone or bundled. That it's their standalone does show that Apple do intend for it to just be a standalone product with its own level of quality. And certainly, if you are a mobile gamer, I'd say, especially if you have some sort of gamepad for your phone, an Apple TV or an Apple Arcade subscription will actually take you decently far. It is a surprisingly good experience, and going through it, what I generally found was a few more mobile-like games, but with no monetization, and then quite a few just creative indie games that were surprisingly interesting. And that was almost shocking to me, given the general perspective that we all have on mobile gaming. I mean, to go outside of this ecosystem, you could always just buy the excellent Dead Cells, snap your controller in, and go to town, having an absolutely fantastic time. You could go play Max Payne. Lots of good stuff there. It's just it gets crowded out by what I talked about at the top of today's video. Now, of course, there are some risks in going on a big platform. I mean, what if there is an exclusivity side, which means that only one segment of gaming can even see your game? There's that. What happens if you release a game on iOS and then maybe it doesn't get to be on the store anymore, as happened to this guy, because some standards had changed and he got an email saying, hey, we're going to have to remove your game if this stuff isn't updated. That can be a real pain in the ass for an indie. At the very least, though, with Apple Arcade, we have seen the likes of Sayonara Wild Hearts and What the Golf actually make it back over to the other platforms, which, I mean, certainly is a good thing. Of course, remember, even with these subscription services, the plan is obviously still to take money out of your wallet. The difference, though, is how. Are they going to take money out of your wallet by giving you a good time, right? By giving you a good service, a good game? Or are they going to do that by trying to pull your levers and do weird, funny business with your psychology, as most of mobile gaming, at least per revenue, actually does? And I guess the thing with these services is it means developers can just make games. If their game is good enough and has enough intrinsic quality, it can actually just do well. Here's a quote from Netflix's head of external games that is almost going to finish the video today. Every single game is free with your subscription. There's no monetization, which is a really great thing for developers from a creative perspective. They get to really focus on making great games and not having to worry about creating games that just drive revenue and money. And I suppose that's the shocking thing. I grew up with the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Advance SP, the Nintendo DS, the PlayStation Portable. And that meant that the idea of just a mobile game being Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, or all of the great JRPGs that have been on DS, games like Mega Man Battle Network that were on, that were on the Game Boy, Pokemon, back when it felt a bit more fresh. That is what mobile gaming was to me growing up. It wasn't mobile gaming, it was gaming on a handheld device. And now, I think if you go to somebody who's maybe under 22 years old, maybe under 20 years old, when they have came of age as somebody playing games, mobile gaming means bing bing wahoo, they're inside your brain trying to massage the folds to pull your levers to get money out of you. And this takes me to the hot water that John Riccitiello got himself into. Now, if that name is familiar to you, it's probably because you remember that he was the CEO of Electronic Arts. After that, he went on to become the CEO of Unity, yeah, the game engine, and he basically said something along the lines of, game developers are fucking stupid for not considering money first. He's walked back that statement, attempted to further clarify his statement. His point was, though, that if you design a game and think about money later, you're not going to get as much gains as if you designed your game with money in mind. And games being designed with money in mind as a part of their design, that is modern mobile gaming. So perhaps the likes of Netflix's gaming offering and Apple Arcade can actually offer us an out of this horrible situation. Because frankly, with the Steam Deck doing well, with the Switch OLED being a thing, the Switch doing well, all of these fantastic clip-on controllers, you've got the Razer Kishi 2, you've got the Backbone, actually making mobile gaming a really fantastic experience from a controls perspective. It would be a damn shame if all that we had was the bullshit that that platform is known for. So that's the point. There's a little bit of hope, and if you actually really try to take a look, you can find gold in mobile. I mean, hey, Dead Cells. I'd say it's one of the truly great roguelites. So if you're going on holiday and you're not going to bring a gaming computer with you, or you don't have a Switch or something, you could get a little snap-on controller and actually play a lot of really fantastic games on your phone. I'm glad that I can say that, and I just hope that premium feeling mobile gaming can actually capture enough of a market now that good control schemes are available for consumers. So let me know what you think about all of this. To be honest, it's some fucking doomer bullshit out there in mobile. But I have seen what is there when you go past the doomer bullshit. It can be surprisingly good. So let me know. Do you play games on your phone? Do you have one of those add-on controllers? Be it a little clip that you put on top of your Xbox controller that you put your phone into, or a more bespoke one like the Backbone or the Razer Kishi 2 or something. Let me know what your experience has been, because to be honest, when I actually decided to give it a fair shake of the stick, I was surprised at what was out there. Let me know, and I'll see you next time.